Hello there. It's your girl Valerie Mason Chase again, and welcome to another episode of Marriage Beyond the Breach. I know the music always gets me. I'll be back here jamming to the music just a little bit. So I welcome you to tonight's broadcast, and tonight is going to be something that I think every single couple can benefit from, whether you are in a committed relationship, whether you're married, whether you're pre-married, whether you're newlywed, whether you're an oldywed, everybody can benefit from our topic on tonight. So what are you going to be talking about, Val? So it's my belief that in most relationships, I won't say all, in most relationships, there will come a time when the couple will face challenges or difficulties or things that have the potential to negatively impact their relationship and their ability to either communicate effectively or to have a strong emotional connection. Well, here's the beautiful thing. There are ways that couples can seek help in that regard. And listen, I believe that everything that is in existence to help us to be a better human being, to be a better wife, husband, mother, son, whatever, it's because, from my perspective, and again, it's just me, I believe it's ordained by God. People who are called to particular professions. So couples have a couple of options. Some couples will seek couples coaching, and some will seek couples counseling. And here's the beautiful thing. Each couple gets to decide which will work for them the best. What is their need? Where do they need to seek help? In coaching or in counseling? So we're going to be talking about both tonight because both are available. And listen, here at Marriage Beyond the Breach, we do what it do. We got coaches and we got counselors. So we're going to cover all bases tonight. And I want to thank you all who are watching. Hey, sis, Nicole, Miss Ollie. You all are so faithful, and you have no idea how much I appreciate you. And if anyone is watching for the very first time, and if you have not already done so, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the Marriage Beyond the Breach YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you could be notified whenever we have another episode coming up. So I am going to bring on our guests for tonight. And none of them are strangers to Marriage Beyond the Breach because they've all been here before. Here first is the dynamic duo from the DMV area, none other than James and Cynthia Green. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
It is so good to see y'all. So good to see you. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out on a Sunday evening to be here with us. So for those who may not be familiar with you all, just share a little something about yourselves, whatever you want the viewers to know.
Well, we are a couple I say that we are a couple who are still on our honeymoon after almost 18 years. I'm still a woman madly in love with her husband. We are the founders of Marriage Built to Last. We are marriage visionaries, CEO and founders of our company. And we have beautiful, amazing adult children. And we're just a couple on the move who believe that God gave us a vision to help couples see what he sees for them. And we help them create that vision so that they can have a successful future and marriage.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And listen, Brother James, you must be doing something right because your wife just said in front of God and everybody else that she is still madly, not just in love with you, but madly in love with you after all these years. So praise God. This is something that I love to hear because we hear so much negativity nowadays when it comes to marriage and relationships. And statistics indicate that fewer people are getting married now than before. So it just warms my heart when I hear couples who still just love each other and love on each other and are not afraid to say it. So
Right.
thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
I just love y'all. So hold on, wait a minute. Let me just bring on our next brother, none other than Mr. Alvin Smith. Hey, Alvin.
What's going on? What's
Hey.
going on? What's going on? I'm excited. I'm excited.
Been here before also. So Alvin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. After listening to James and Cynthia, you know, I first let me just say it's so good to hear, even after 18 years, is like you're still on your honeymoon. That means
Mm-hmm.
that you're doing that Ephesians 5 type of thing.
Absolutely.
You're honoring, you're lifting her up, and she's lifting you up. So I am so happy to hear that. Myself, I have been married for it'll be 31 years next month. 31
Wow.
Wow.
years. 31 years. Um, you know, we have four grown children. There's me. There I
Mm.
am, dare to be a dreamer.
There
Um,
you go.
we have 10, 11. My wife is going to shoot me. 11 grands. 11 grands. Happy birthday, Truth, because your present is about to be shipped to you. Got you. Um,
Okay.
and and I just found a new lease in life, especially
Mm.
with marriage. Especially with marriage, is like I'm learning through doing couples counseling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning myself. And
Yeah.
I come home sometimes and like I be like, hey, I didn't do this, that's this. And my wife would look at me, be like, what are you talking about? I said, look, I gotta change some things. And
Yes.
so I love what I do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am a LMAFT. I do drug and alcohol. Um, I mentor kids from 8 to 18.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're free next week, next Saturday, I'll be at Pennington Park. We're starting our
Mm.
garden. Everybody's welcome to come out there and see what we're doing for the
Okay.
community. We're growing for the community. So I'm teaching these boys how to do different things, getting them out. We just had a meeting yesterday, and we had somebody come through from New York. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it, you know, so our kids they're amazing, and so I just love what I do.
Praise God. And for those of you who don't know, Alvin and I are colleagues at Mending
Yes,
Hearts Behavioral Health and Family Service,
yes,
Okay.
where we
yes.
are passionate people helpers. That's what our CEO calls us. And that's what we strive to be. So I want to just get into our topic for tonight, couples counseling, couples coaching. So I want to ask each of you, from your perspectives, what are some of the most common reasons that couples will either seek couples counseling or couples coaching? And what do you have? How do you answer that from each one of you's perspective?
Y'all want to go
Anybody can
first?
start.
We can go first.
Go
Well,
ahead.
Hmm.
I say most of the time it's about communication. See,
Hmm.
He said,
because
why do they
oh,
seek help?
why do they seek it? Because they feel they fail
Hmm.
to communicate. Because when you look
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
marriages, even relationships, it's about intimacy or sex, it's about finances, or it's about communication. But when you look deeper, it's always about communication, because you have to talk about sex, you have to talk about intimacy, you have to talk about your finances, maybe who's better at it. So it always comes down to communication. And when it comes down to that, it has to be the right time. You have to pick the right setting, the right time, and it has to come from a place of love. Because if you two love each other, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you love that person, you won't come to that person, making demands. You will come to that person with a place of love, so you can communicate better. And it takes really effective listening, because a lot of times you get miscommunication when you're talking, and it goes where you say, okay, this is what I heard. Are you saying this? So it's good to maybe repeat it back, so you can get a true understanding of what your mate or what your spouse is truly saying.
Yeah.
So it always comes down to a great deal of communication.
That's good. That's good.
So I say some of the reasons why couples go to couples counseling or coaching. As far as coaching, most couples, well, both of them. I can use examples too. So we had a couple that called us up because they felt like they just needed another ear to hear, for them to both to share what they've been going through, and just they said they just felt like they needed a listening ear and another couple to talk to talk some things through. So sometimes it's just a matter of talking some things through. When it comes to counseling, it's a lot deeper. So you go to a counselor because you are really stuck on something that you both can't get over, either something that happened in a relationship like infidelity or something like that, or like we have a couple that the spouse is a drinker, he's an alcoholic, he admits it. We can't help you with that, okay? That you gotta go deeper. So sometimes they call because they got these past traumas, where people get married and they bring all their junk with them. So sometimes they seek out counseling or coaching or something of that nature. But they're looking for answers. They're looking for answers. They're looking for help. Alvin?
Absolutely. That's right.
Well, y'all said it all, but yes, and I do agree with that, because a lot of clients, when they do come, it is become what the first thing is, what the number one thing is communication. The second thing is what? Finances. And we wind up telling clients, couples, this. It's like y'all not thinking about the marriage. Y'all just thinking about the honeymoon. Right. You're thinking about the honeymoon, and everybody needs to come and see you. But when the honeymoon is over, the real work has to begin. Yeah. And so once you get home and the bills start coming, and y'all haven't talked about how is y'all going to pay for the wedding, how is y'all going to pay for the honeymoon, so now all the stress is building up. And after the stress is building up, now nobody wants to talk to each other. Now we play the blame game. Right. So they need, so they come to counseling because as y'all both stated, nobody's listening. They forgot how to listen. Right. They forgot how to hear each other. They forgot how to communicate. They forgot how to be, how to be nice to each other. Yeah. Wait a minute. They forgot about how to give grace.
That's what I was getting ready to say. You took the word out my mouth.
Well, you done took all the words out of mine. So
I love it.
But Alvin has a good point, because when he talked about the wedding and everything like that, I always say people pay to get married because they pay for everything. They pay to get divorced, but they don't want to pay to learn how to be married.
Hello. Hello, hallelujah, praise the Lord. That is so true.
And they're more reactive than proactive. If you seek counseling or seek help in the beginning, then you'll learn how to deal with that conflict, how to do conflict resolution. But you wait for something to happen to go seek help, to go seek coaching or therapy. They're more reactive when something happens than proactive.
Absolutely. I agree with everything that you all have said. And, James, you started off by saying communication is underneath it all, because no matter what the issue is, you have to be able to talk about it in an effective way.
Exactly.
People argue about it, they fuss about it, they give each other the cold shoulder about it, they stonewall about it. They do all those things, but they don't always necessarily talk about it. So I just want to cover something because you started talking about it, Cynthia, and I just want to piggyback on that a little bit. And that is where coaching and counseling may differ in order to maybe help couples ascertain which may be a better fit for them. And here's the thing, at different times in your relationship, one or the other may be appropriate. Sometimes coaching might be appropriate. Sometimes counseling might be more appropriate. So counseling is about and focuses on treating mental health issues and conditions as defined by what I call our Bible, which is the DSM-5. You know, we live and die by the DSM-5 because that's all about diagnoses. As a counselor, your job is to diagnose, treat, and provide interventions for issues like anxiety, depression, trauma, and other things, as well as in couples counseling. Counseling is focused on addressing underlying mental health concerns that impact a client or a couple's day-to-day life and functioning.
Yes.
Coaching is not about diagnosing or treating mental health disorders. It's about helping clients achieve specific goals, whether they're related to your career, your personal growth, or improving relationships. Coaching clients are typically high-functioning individuals looking to optimize an area of their lives, not necessarily seeking help for a mental health condition. So with that being said, I think, you know, that hopefully can help couples determine where they might land in terms of getting some help. But absolutely, you want to get some help. Oh, my son had just asked the question, what's the difference between counseling and coaching? So I just gave it, Jono. So I hope that helps you as well as others to understand. And I just want to give a shout out to my daughter-in-law. Hey, Rico, it's good to see you on here. Miss Ollie and Jackie and E. Nicole. I think I've given you guys a shout out already. Of course, my baby boy. It says JWC. That stands for Jonathan Warren Chase. That's my son. Anywho.
All right.
And if anyone listening, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put it in the chat. If you have any comments, please don't hesitate to put it in the chat. So what do you believe are some of the misconceptions that people may have when it comes to either couples counseling or coaching, and how might you address some of those misconceptions?
So let me I'm gonna start off because they talk a lot.
Wait a minute, Alvin. Wait a minute. I know you ain't talking, Alvin.
No. But the first misconception that I've noticed by me, especially me being a male, is that why am I going to them? And meaning, first of all, I got a third party to listen to what we have to say. The second thing is like, well, because we counseling mainly, you see a lot of women, and a lot of, especially men, are hesitant because they feel like they're going to get railroaded,
right?
And so they are not comfortable. The other thing is that, you know, with couples, it's like not just as far as the dilemma of who they're seeing, but the other part is, will the therapist take sides? Because I hear a lot of, well, all they did was listen. They just sided with her. And they never give me a chance to speak. Right. So how I address that is, you're both here, and for me, I see you right down the middle. I have you as a couple, but I respect you as an individual. So your point matters. Right. What you say matters. And if you listen long enough, everybody will tell you everything that's going on. But we have to be able to hear them out first
Yeah.
before we help them.
Right. And Alvin, you made an excellent point about men, especially black men. I know, I guess I'm from old school where I guess back then you would say, I'm not going to no stranger and telling them my business.
Right.
That's how a lot of males, especially black males, were.
Yeah.
You know, but now there's a
Still
lot
are. Still are.
Right. There's a lot of resources out there.
Not work.
Like you said, women will go to counseling, women will, go to coaching, but men won't. That's why Cynthia and I guess I don't want to say have an advantage because if it's a woman counselor or therapist, they'll say, okay, the men will think the women will side with the women, like Alvin said. But when they see both of us, they say, oh, I got a man and a woman. I feel maybe safer.
Right.
Because
that's
one
good.
won't take sides with the other. And plus, when it comes to coaching, I think we take you where you are and help you get to where you want to be. We address the issues you're currently having now. Like therapy, it'll go back, say maybe your childhood, maybe how you were raised. If it's a 2-parent household or a single parent household, maybe in the suburbs compared to the inner city, they will go back. But coaching will take you where you are, the issue you're having right there, and help you get to where you want to be.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, James.
Yeah.
And one thing I say to the couples that I counsel, the very first session. First of all, I'm not here for you. I'm not here for you. I'm here for the marriage. That's number one. Number two, there will be times when each of you will have a turn on what I call the hot seat, where I am focusing in more on one spouse than the other. But even when that happens, let's say it's the husband. And I'm talking a lot to the wife, and I'll say, sir, I just want to continue processing this with your wife for a few minutes. Is that okay if I sit here with her for a few minutes? And 100% of the time they'll say yes, go ahead, or vice versa if it's something with the husband, because at least from my perspective, most sessions it's not going to be 50-50 all the time. Some of the time I may speak more to the husband, some of the time I may speak more to the wife, but I let them know everyone is going to have a turn on that hot seat. And I tell my clients, if there's ever a time when either one of you believes that I am favoring one more than the other, by all means, let it be known to me, because maybe there's something, maybe I have to check my personal biases in the process and just take a step back and reflect and say, maybe there's something to what they're saying. But my goal is to be as fair as possible. And fair is not always 50-50. There have been sessions where I've spent 80% of the time of the session talking to one spouse as opposed to the other, because an issue came up that we really needed to focus on and explore and process through.
Always.
So if a counselor, if a couple, one or the other, feels that a counselor is taking sides, then you have to speak up about that. You absolutely must speak up about that. Frank and I experienced that. We had a female counselor one time. She took his side every single time. Listen, after a while, I said, I ain't going no more, because he was all kinds of wrong, and he sat up there in session and cried some crocodile tears. And I said, what the what? And she looked at me. Oh, Valerie. She was almost in tears herself. Oh, Valerie. Oh, your husband is. I forgot how she phrased it, but essentially he's having a breakthrough. And I'm saying to myself, she does not know how charming my husband could be, and how he can pull the wool over women's eyes, because he's been doing it for years.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
So yeah, there can be times when that will happen, but I think it needs to be recognized by the couple, pointed out to the counselor, and if they're not willing to make corrections, then cut your losses and move on to someone else, because there's always going to be the right fit for the right couple.
Exactly.
And every counselor or every coach is not the right fit for everybody, and we have to be willing to accept that.
And Val, you said exactly right, because in the very beginning, we ask the couple, do they both agree to the coaching or the counseling? If one party doesn't, we will not coach them or we will not counsel them. They have to be in agreement. That they're both willing to come to the table with the issue. Now, if one says, well, no, I didn't agree to this, I don't really want to do it, then maybe we're not for you, because you both have to want to. You both have to want to work on your marriage, want to fix the issue.
Right.
Yes. So I want to just jump down to one of the other questions, because I want to piggyback on what you just said, because you said they both have to be in agreement. But what if they're both in agreement, but one partner is more engaged in the process than the other? How do you typically handle that? And that's for everybody.
Well, I can use an example. We had a couple that we were coaching via Zoom, and they were in Texas. And so when we first started, the husband was like this on every time we got on.
Wow.
And sitting back, just like this, and totally disengaged.
Right. And let me tell you, and it was funny because we met with them on Wednesdays, and he came out and said, I hate Wednesdays.
We were like, do you hate all day Wednesday? Or you saying you hate Wednesday when it comes time for this? And he said, you hit the nail on the head. I wasn't going to say it, but yes. And so we told him, well, if you don't want to be here, we understand, we can stop. He's like, no, go ahead. So he gave us permission. And so we would mainly talk to his wife. But what we let him know, we're not talking to just one of you. We're talking to both of you. And we only will do this if the both of you are in agreement to be here. So you're here, so we're assuming that you don't want to be here, but you do want to be here. And so we would talk, and we eventually he broke through.
Right.
He started engaging because he realized that we weren't biased. Right. We weren't just talking to his wife. We weren't just trying to tell him what to do and boss him around and just give him advice. No, we need your opinion. So what do you think? What are the suggestions that you have to help resolve or get to where you and your wife want to be? What do you want out of the relationship? Like, we engaged him to get his opinion and let him know he wasn't there for us to chastise him and tell him what to do as a grown man.
And get them more involved, where if one talks more than the other, that one usually the one that came to the coaching or came to the counseling and has the issue. So they'll say what the issue is and how they may help. And like, maybe he or she's not hearing me. So when the other party actually hears their heart, here's their issue, now they want to come and say, okay, I have something to say. I done heard her. Here's how I feel about it. Here's what I think. Because when you first hear the one person that's talking all the time, we'll ask the second person, did you hear what they said? Do you see how they feel? Now they want to get engaged. Okay, maybe I didn't know they felt that way. Or maybe I never heard it that way. Now they have something to say because now they have feedback. That's how you get them engaged. When one party talks more than the other, they hear the issue, they maybe hear the complaint, they hear how they feel, and they say, okay, maybe I didn't know you felt like that. Right. So now I have something to say. Now I understand. Because all we're here to do is help them to hear each other.
Right.
Good. Yeah. That's good. That's good.
But James and Cynthia, let me ask both of y'all this. When they first come in, do you try to make them feel comfortable?
Absolutely.
I'm just asking. No.
So the first conversation is, you're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you. You need to make sure that we're a good fit.
Right.
And we're making sure that you're a good fit for us. And then we're a good fit for you.
Exactly.
And then we talk about housekeeping rules.
Right.
The spouse not interrupting the other. We're not going to sit on Zoom and sit here and listen to you two argue.
Everything's confidential. What's said here stays here.
So we go through the whole spiel, Alvin, and we tell them, James is a big jokester, and I tell him, we want to have fun with this. You can learn and grow and work on your marriage, but have fun doing it.
Right.
So to that point, that's one of the things I came from the prison. I was working with the youth inside the prison.
Oh, wow.
So they taught me. And one of the things they told me was that, Mr. Smith, they was like, well, you want to know all this stuff about us, but we don't know anything about you.
I know that's right.
So I had to break it down to them. And so when I came into Mending Hearts, when I was thrown into the fire, it was one of those things. I brought all of that with me, and so with my clientele was basically like allowing them to get to know me, building up their rapport. This is all in the first session, just building up rapport,
right?
Letting them know exactly what you say. Because as your husband is a joke, I always let them know, like everything that we're doing here is serious, but it's not that serious that we cannot have fun at the same
time.
Right.
You know, because we forget about life. This is lifing. Lifing is about having fun, being serious. It's a cycle. It's a cycle. That's life. If we don't understand that, because it's going to be days where you're going to have bad days that you're not going to want to be here. There's going to be days where you're going to be energetic and be like, and I have to be able to control the narrative of the conversations so that it doesn't get out of proportion, where one is out talking the other and trying to take over the whole session. Because when we trying to get to the meat of everything, they want to try, especially people that are that stonewall, they will bring up other things to deflect from what the situation really is, and we have to bring them right back to what the groundwork is.
Right, and you know what's the key with us is that when we're coaching couples or even counseling couples, we'll tell them what we're saying to you is nothing we haven't done. We'll tell them the issues we've had. We'll bring examples. Okay, here's how we have problems. Here's how we did it wrong. Here's the issues we have to bring to let them know every couple isn't perfect. Every couple has issues. Even the counselors, even the therapists, everybody could have problems. It's how you deal with them. You know, they say you overcome by your testimony. So when we give our testimony and how we came out on the other side,
now you're talking.
Yeah. And you know what else too, Alvin and Valerie, is that any great coach and any great speaker that gets in front of, I don't care if it's one person or a room full of 1,000 people, and James and I, we are certified speakers, okay?
All right.
You have to share your story. You have to connect with your audience. So I don't care if you're talking to an audience of 1 or audience of 1,000. If you don't connect with them, just like your spouse ain't hearing what you're saying, that room or that person is not hearing what you're saying if they can't connect with you. And so that's a big difference in counseling too. Counseling, you really can't go and tell your personal stories and your personal things. Sometimes depends on the setting.
The person.
Depends on the setting, depends on the person. But most of us are not taught that. I used to be a counselor. We weren't taught to share our story and connect with the person in the room. But when you know better, you do better. And when people know your story and they can connect with you, they trust you more.
I agree 100% with everything you said, Sister Cynthia, because you are absolutely right. When I was in the master's program for counseling, it was reiterated repeatedly. Don't self-disclose. Don't self-disclose.
Yes, that's what I used to hear.
And you know what? But I got my degree and I left the school. And I do self-disclose sometimes, especially when I have couples that I'm counseling. And here's why. Because very often when couples enter the counseling process, they feel hopeless.
Yes.
I want to give them hope. I want to let them know, yes, I have been where you are. I have sat where you are sitting right now. And me and my cookie man, we're on the other side. And there's nothing special about us. The Bible tells us God's not a respecter of persons. So there's nothing so special about us that we've gotten on the other side that you cannot get on the other side also. Now, granted, you got to do some work in the process. I let them know it's not overnight. There's going to be some work involved, and it won't always be easy. Because guess what? If it was easy, everybody would be.
That's Jay's favorite line. But you're right, because
it's true. It's so true.
The only one that's been through what they're going through, and we all know that that's not true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
I'm
they
not
did tell
scared
us
to,
that in school, not to don't self-disclose, but
yeah,
when I heard them saying it,
right.
in my mind, I'm saying, I ain't paying that no mind.
Right.
Exactly. And that's how I used to think too when I was doing counseling. So when I came to coaching, I'm thinking the same thing. But when you take a real, go to coaching school or get your coaching certification, they tell you, you have to tell your story and you got to go deep. You got to dig deep sometimes. And a lot of people don't want to tell their story, what they've been through and what they came through. But like James just said, we're overcome by our testimony.
Ooh.
And that's how we connect. That's how we
Absolutely.
Because I can easily say how I was one that would cut Cynthia off and always thought what she was going to say and come with a response and never let her finish. That was me.
I done that one time.
Yeah.
And God convicted me. I got convicted.
I don't believe that. You done did a whole bunch of times. No, I'm just messing.
and I never forget though. I never forget. I came home from work because me and my wife used to work in the same complex. Baby, if you're listening, I'm not going to overshare. I love you. But what happened was like she was coming, she was just da 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 da, and I was like, well, you need to do that, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. And she wasn't listening to me, and I got upset. I said, well, you ain't gonna listen to me. I went on, stormed up the steps, went to bed, and God, he was like, well, you didn't listen to anything she was saying. She didn't want you to talk. She just wanted you to listen to her.
Listen, right. Because women sometimes don't always want the man to fix it, just to be an ear, just to listen.
Just listen.
Yeah.
Just listen.
We have to learn the difference.
Exactly.
We have to learn.
Absolutely.
But that's at the 30. For me, that's at the 30 years. You know what I mean? Going up to 30 years, I had to learn all this.
Yeah. Well, listen, that's understandable because Cynthia and I understand that the testosterone renders you guys slower learners. So
wow. Wow. Oh, that's what we going. Okay. All right.
That it may take you guys a little bit longer to grasp.
Well, I always say women mature faster than men.
Look, yeah, I believe that we do.
Thank you, baby. He knows. He knows.
Look, listen. I'm a little plug for Johnny Ray Youngblood, Pastor Johnny Ray Youngblood. When I was,
oh my goodness,
when I was younger, he preached about about why black men we die so young. He said, "Look at your wife. They go get their hair done, they go get massages, they go get their feet done, they go get their nails done." And it's like, and we up here with high blood pressure.
That's right.
If we don't learn from our spouses, it's like, we are creating, because we already have a high level of stress in marriage. And it's like, so we have to learn how to relieve some of that stress.
Right.
And it don't always have to be by going out. It's just by doing little things that we need to do in a marriage.
He who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor. You want that favor? When you find her, she elevates you. She's there to help you learn, to help you grow.
Well, that's why I said Ephesians 5.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just had a thought and it just flew right out of my head, but hopefully it'll fly back in a couple of minutes. I know it was related to what we were just saying, but I can't remember right now what I was about to say. But anywho, so Alvin, I want to ask you, when it comes to counseling, how do you handle when one or both partners has some unresolved trauma that affects their relationships? How do you handle that?
All right, for couples, it's a lot because of the fact, first of all, we're treating both of them. And when it comes down to trauma within the relationship with one person, sometimes we have to let them know, like, I see that you're dealing with some things from your past that's causing a lot of this anger, this buildup, and maybe we could set some side apart from the couples so we can work on certain things. And I have a lot of men that I deal with and that people send to me And that's one thing that we work on, because if we can't get that fixed, the relationship is still going to be doomed. Because I deal with PTSD, I deal with a lot of anxiety and stuff like that from the military, and I had to learn how to deal with my own issues within myself. This is and going back to that last question, because this ain't my first rodeo. This is my second one. My first one, I got married young, and and this one, I came in 30s, in my late 30s, but yeah, now I'll be 64 next week. But it's a lot of things that I had to learn about myself. And so I like to deal with the inner child of that individual. And that, because certain things that we cannot say in a couples counseling. We can't really say that.
I don't know what that might be, because I say just about everything, and maybe that's just me.
Right.
Because when I see something that is concerning in one partner or the other, I speak on it, but I don't stop there. I encourage individual counseling. I encourage individual counseling for all of the couples that I counsel. Most of the couples that I see them individually as well, or they will have another individual counselor, or a lot of the men I will send to a male counselor, because sometimes men connect better with men. And I'll ask, would you prefer to have a male counselor for your individual counselor? Because I'm encouraging you to have individual sessions in addition to the couple sessions. Sometimes they'll say, yes, I prefer a man. And sometimes they'll say, no, I'm okay with you, Ms. Valerie. And that's fine. But I want them to have the option to know that I'm open to whatever will work for you. It doesn't have to be me, but I do recommend individual sessions, especially if I see something, or I hear something, or I sense something that is concerning, that either has negatively impacted the relationship or has the potential to negatively impact the relationship. So yeah, I definitely, I can't think of something I haven't said in a couple session that I
I'm not saying that we can't say it, but what I'm trying to get them to see is that they do have an issue. And yes, and that issue that may be for that one person, for the other person, you'll see the opposite, where they lose themselves. So you recognize that they need counseling so they can find themselves as well. So they can be whole. Because when we come into a marriage, we always say that you become one. I say no, you're still two individuals though, but yet you're one.
Right.
But you're two individuals, and that's the individual part you have to work on.
And that's the key, because one party might think it's always the other person, and they don't see nothing in themselves until maybe the therapist or counselor points it out. Because they may say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with me; it's all them," but they might not see, what their issue is with themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So Miss Ollie was asking, how do you encourage men to come to counseling or coaching? I want to ask Miss Cynthia, because I want to hear a woman's perspective on this.
What was the question?
No,
again?
she one of our viewers asked the question, how do you encourage men to go to counseling or coaching? Well,
I've never been in a situation where I had to coach a man into coming to counseling, because everyone who comes to us, they come to us. We don't go looking for them. And so what we do, though, I'll tell you what we do. One of the things that we do, if a wife calls us and says that she wants to get coaching for her and her husband, we tell them that we have to have a discovery call with the both of you. And then we have to determine if he really wants to coach and if he wants to be there. And if he says, well, this is what my wife wants, well, what do you want? So you try to find out what the man wants and what he may and then we explain to him what coaching is. We let him know it's a little bit different than counseling. And so when he gets an understanding of what we're going to do, which you explained the difference at the beginning, we're here to talk about where you are right now, and where you would like to go and where you would like to see your marriage be in the future. Is that something that you want to be a part of? Is that something that you want to see grow? Do you want more for your marriage? What do you want for your marriage? So he has to see the value in it for himself and in the value in it for him and his spouse.
Right. And it's something what I tell the men to get them to come. It's something that Alva said, how even though they're two individuals coming together as one, I always tell them, look at here. When you stood before that pastor, the reverend, a preacher, whatever it was, and said, I do, right? Now your focus is, okay, what do I have to do to make this marriage work? What do I have to do to make sure we build together? And that's the wrong focus. Now, it should be, what do we have to do together? Right. It shouldn't be what do I have to do, because when they're having an issue, you'll hear people say, well, I can't do this anymore. I've tried to do everything I could. I don't know more I could do. And you hear I. Now you should be focusing. That's your wrong focus. Your focus should be on we. What do we have to do together? And I tell them, man, but when you got married, that I went away and it became we. What do we have to do? What do we have to do? How can we make it work?
That's the inclusiveness.
Exactly. Exactly. So I tell them it's not more about you now. So you have to come together with her. It should be him and her coming together, because we're addressing the we, not you as an individual.
And I can honestly say we've had men to say they are so glad that they did. Okay. I would say every single man that we've ever had on with his wife have always said they are so glad that they did coaching. They've never done anything like that. Even at our conferences, we've had men speak up in the room and say, I've never talked about my marriage, my life in front of a group of people. And they're like, this feels good. Or this is the first time I've done this, and I'm so glad that I did it. Thank you guys for your feedback. So they find value. So you have to let them see the value of why they're there. And they have to know their why.
Absolutely.
They got to know their why.
Right.
Yes. So my nephew just said he was okay with this female Christian therapist. He just needed someone strong enough to call him out on his mess. Let me tell you something, nephew. I am that therapist. I have no problem calling people out on their stuff, male or female. I have no issue with that. And there are times when I'll actually say to them, listen, I'm taking off my counselor hat right now. And I'm putting on either my mother hat or my auntie hat or my sister hat, because we have to go there. All right.
Yes.
So, and sometimes people need that.
Yes.
I will do that with certain individuals that I have that relationship with. Once we have established that therapeutic alliance, and I know that they trust me. Once they trust me, I know that I can do that. I can take off that counselor hat and put on that mother hat, and I could be auntie or connect with them on that level and say something that's not very counselorly. I don't even know if that's a word.
I'll take it.
But you guys, you get what I mean by that, right? I'm sure you guys understand.
So,
yeah, because we tell the man we're gonna, we tell the couple, we're gonna be calling you out on your stuff.
But once you
got to be able to handle it.
But you have to build that rapport first, like you said. Once you build that, and you have their trust, I will call them out in a minute.
If you're afraid for us to call you out on your stuff, you
may not want to come to us.
They don't want me. Absolutely, they don't want me, because I hear people in the session sometimes will say something else. I said, wait a minute, no, I have to challenge that. And here's why I'm challenging that. Or I say, you know what, that doesn't necessarily have a ring of truth to it. So, let's talk about this for a little bit.
Somebody said, I own up to my mess.
Go ahead, Alvin, you was going to say something?
I done lost my train of thought.
Sorry, bro. Sorry, bro.
No, you good. You good.
Look, my husband learned to own up to his mess too. He didn't used to.
Because owning up to it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It just means you're owning up to it, and you see how it makes your spouse feel.
But guess
what?
But see, I'm since I do a lot of gardening, and I'm gonna do another shameless plug for my boy, Lionel Moses. Me and him preach together. His book is called The Marriage Seed. His book is called The Marriage Seed by Lionel Moses, and so I use the gardening as a metaphor, because marriage is nothing more than the garden. What you plant is what's going to grow.
That's right.
Right.
If you
right.
plant love, it's going to grow. If you plant hatred, it's going to grow. What's the old saying? What you feed the most is going to grow the most.
That's right.
You know, in a garden, you got weeds and vegetables coming up. Whatever you and you have to be careful. That's why Jesus said, he's like, no, let them grow together. Then once they're grown, then pull it out. Because we have to be careful that we don't pull the wrong thing out.
And like it says in John, the longer that seed stays in the ground, the greater the harvest.
The greater the
That's
harvest.
right. Yes, and it's got to be nurtured. You've got using that garden metaphor. You've got to nurture it.
All that's part of couples counseling,
exactly,
and coaching. Because if we don't teach that, if they don't know that, because this is something that we haven't learned.
Right.
We only see picturettes of what we saw growing up. Me growing up in Philly, I seen a lot of negative stuff. And that's what happened in my first.
You said that perfectly because I talk about how children are visual. You know, if they didn't see a great marriage growing up, they don't know what a great marriage is. They can't learn. But if they see one, they'll say, "Oh, I like that. Maybe that's what I want." Children are visual. When you got to give them a great example of a marriage so they can see that.
And you know, that's one of the reasons why 2 years ago, James and I, we did a book anthology with 15 other couples. And we had them share their story about the stuff that they've been through, how they felt going through it, how they handled it, how they came out on the other side, and what they now do to keep their marriage strong. Because people need to hear these stories, because a lot of, like I said earlier, they think that they're the only ones that's been through these things, and they don't know how to handle it. But when they see someone else's story and how they handled it, a lot of times that can help them to, you know, just open up their eyes a little bit to say there is hope, there are options, and we see that somebody else made it through, so maybe we can too.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
Alvin, Miss Ollie's asking, who was the author of the book that you just mentioned?
Lionel Moses.
Lionel Moses, Miss Ollie. I remember now what I was going to say, because you mentioned Johnny Youngblood. That's that cussing preacher, right?
No. Well, he's from Brooklyn, New York.
Yes, I know. Because remember, I grew up in Brooklyn, and I lived in Brooklyn, so I moved to PA. I remember Johnny Youngblood. He used to cuss behind the pulpit. That's how I remember him as the cussing
but for
preacher.
for me as a young man, it was like I needed that realness, and that's how I get it. You know, because I came from a church that was, you know, socially economics, and you know, Reverend James S. Hall Jr. Like I didn't realize I was learning from him by watching him.
Right.
And that's why I'm in politics now. That's why I'm doing a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now. It's because of him. Is, you know, he said every eye closed ain't sleep. So when I look at my clients, the first thing especially for couples, when they come in my room, I said, you have just now entered into new beginnings. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things become new.
Things become new.
I like
that passage talking about younger is right, because sometimes you got to meet them where they are. And younger couples have to be able to relate to you, so you have to meet them where they are.
Yeah, that's my philosophy. That is my philosophy.
I got it.
You know, sometimes they need a strong voice.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, I just wanted to ask about conflict resolution. So how do you introduce that concept of conflict resolution to couples? And what are some of the methods for conflict resolution that you have found to be most effective?
Go ahead, Alvin. You can go first.
You sure?
You know, Cynthia has a lot to say. No, let me stop playing.
I think James has been having a lot to say tonight.
Well, when we deal with conflict resolution, you know, what's the first thing that we said? Communication, right? The other part is grace. Grace. We have to give grace. You know, when we're dealing with, I don't want to say too much. You know, with clients that deal with somebody had an abortion on them, and now the one person didn't want the abortion, they wanted the child, but so now they just all this hostility is built up, and so we have to take it one step at a time. Let's get grace though, because let's talk about what love is. Let's talk about what the communication is. What does that? How's that going to look in your relationship? How do you see your house? If it's going to be better, what is that going to look like? Because you got to remember, the house that you built is not your mama's house.
Right.
It's not the other person's father's house. This is your house. So in order to deal with the conflict, we have to learn how to be able to listen to what's being said, because sometimes even if I tell couples this, even if if it's one party that has a lot to say about the other party, and then the other party say, well, you don't do this. So I say, well, let's address all that, because that's where the conflict comes in, because they're saying you one way, the other party is seeing you another way, seeing themselves another way. We stated this earlier. We have to get both of y'all in a mirror so y'all can see yourself. Because you talking about a twig in your eye, but you got a plank, in the other person's eye, but you got a plank in yours. So let's address both. And now what does that do? It brings some of that stuff down, because now as the other party gets to see, oh, well, I didn't know I talked so much. I didn't know that I was just, over talking you. I didn't know that I was taking your leadership away from you. I didn't know that's how you felt. Okay, so now that you understand that, I said, now that's something you could work on. And as for the other party, hey, sometimes we have to be a little bit aggressive now, because now it's like, all right, so now that we address that issue, now I need for you to deal with this issue.
Yes.
Now let's deal with this issue, because she's no longer going to see you that way. Now, one, you got to see yourself in a better way. Two, you're going to have to be able to see her in the light of what the garden is supposed to look like.
Right. So Jane and I, we kind of have a process that we take couples through to help them learn how to deal with conflict. And one of the things that we do is that first they have to identify what the conflict is. So we have them each write a list of their concerns, things that they feel that they've been having issues over, either individually that they feel is an issue. They both write their list, and then the things that that the two of you been having issues over. And so we teach them to have a talk, what we call a scheduled talk time, and you work from that list. Now we teach them some certain skills, and we're not going to go into all of our processes here, but we teach them to sit down, take one of those issues off your list, and you discuss it. And we have them, one of the things we have them do is use, when they first get started, use the hourglass. So when you flip it over, it's her turn or his turn. When you go first, you talk about that issue and how it makes you feel or what you think about it. Right. And then when it's their turn, they do it. And then the two of you then have a discussion together. But the key is we tell them, what's the solution? You should be solution focused.
Right.
And not just looking at the current situation.
Right.
You have to be ready to take action.
Right.
After you come up with those solutions. And then my husband always says that you have to come into agreement. Can two walk together except they be agreed?
Right.
Unless they agree. That's right. Rocking to and fro if you don't know how to come into agreement. So we talk about that. Of course, our coaching is scripture based. So we're going to give you practical tips, but we're going to give you the word too.
Because when you come into that, if both parties come with a solution, you don't talk about the problem unless you have an idea on how it could be resolved. So when you both come with an idea, you can share the idea and then meet somewhere in the middle. And that helps you actually resolve the conflict, because he has an idea how to resolve it. She has an idea how to resolve it. You both bring it to the table. and you come into agreement on how you can resolve it when we hear both parties' solution.
And it goes back to that communication is the key.
Exactly.
Amen. Amen.
And you
It
know,
absolutely is. It absolutely.
And one time somebody
No,
said,
go ahead.
somebody said to us, everybody always says communication is the key. Communication is the key. You got to communicate. And they were like, well, what is communicate? Communicate is everything we've been saying. You have to be willing to sit down like two mature adults.
Right.
Yeah.
Take the time to hear what he's saying. Take the time to hear what she's saying without interrupting, making your comments, and repeating back to get clear understanding. Okay, is this what I hear you saying? Or did you hear? Can you repeat back to me what I just said so I can make sure you're understanding?
And remember, 10% is the content, 90% is the tone
and body language.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes. That is so true. So good. Because just like you said, Cynthia, sometimes people say, well, we don't communicate. We can't communicate. And I said, no, I beg to differ. Communication is taking place all the time.
Right.
Just because you're not talking doesn't mean that you're not communicating. Now, there are ways to do it effectively. And the two of you just kind of laid out what that process can look like. Because one things I notice about couples that come into counseling, they want to talk ad nauseum about whatever the issue is.
That's
right. Blah 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 blah. And okay, I'll listen. I get that, but at some point we have to move from talking about the problem to talking about how we're going to fix it. We've got to be solution oriented. We can't stay back there. We can start back there, but we don't stay back there.
Right.
What are we going to do going forward to make a difference, to be able to communicate effectively with one another?
True.
Because you can't stay back there and keep talking about what he did or what she did. Yeah.
But Valerie, understand, every couple don't understand what communication is.
They don't.
Yeah,
We're not taught how to communicate.
Yeah.
This is a foreign language. And I always let them know it sounds like a foreign language because we don't talk like this.
We don't. And we're not patient enough to listen to each other.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because growing up, what was it? Children should be seen and not heard.
Not heard. Right.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
So
but you know something? But I do that. I absolutely do teach them what communication is, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and what
that's
the two
my
of you
first
can do
process.
together. And what I say to them is this: in the beginning, it's going to feel uncomfortable and unnatural. But the more you do it, just like anything else, it's like riding a bike. You didn't know how to ride a bike when you first started either. You started out with some training wheels. And then your mom or your daddy was behind you holding the bike. And after a while, they let go. And you were going with it. Because you kept at it. Communication, effective communication is the very same way. The more you do it, the more comfortable you are, and the more it'll just spring from you, naturally.
The better
but in the beginning, it will feel unnatural.
Hey, Valerie, let me ask you this. Let me ask all of y'all this.
Yeah.
So, would y'all agree that in the relationship that when there's I just started telling clients disagreements can be healthy in a sense where
absolutely,
because you can learn from each other,
right?
And I use the I'm a Philly boy. Y'all know that. Even though my Sixers suck right now.
Oh my God, do that.
I'm sorry. I had to go there. I
can't even watch them.
but it's poetry in motion when you get communication the right way. When you get the relationship the right way, you're going to have disagreements, but then you got to pass the ball. You got to pass. You got to be able. Sometimes you got to be a facilitator.
Right.
You can't be a Magic Johnson or LeBron or all the ones that like to shoot all the time, because sometimes you got to be a facilitator and give the ball to somebody else. Allow your partner to be able to be a part of the conversation.
Right.
Because if you do a soliloquy and you expect for your partner to be able to repeat back what you stated, they haven't heard a thing.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes I will encourage couples, particularly those that are long-winded when you are communicating with your spouse with the expectation that they're going to say, okay, what I heard you say is, try very hard to limit it to 4 or 5 sentences. Because if you go on and on and on, they're going to hear the first thing you said and the last thing you said. Exactly. And everything in the middle is going to get lost. Yep. And then the other one is going to accuse the speaker will say, well, you weren't listening. You weren't listening. No, well, you just talked too much. Maybe just shorten it up a little bit. Right. That makes it easier to say,
break it down.
You know, what I heard you say is blah, blah, blah. Okay, yes, that's right. Now you can respond to what your partner has just said. And I want to agree with Alvin about conflict. I think conflict can be very healthy. And from my perspective, because it presents the opportunity to have a broader conversation that you would never have had if that conflict didn't come up.
Right. It helps you to grow. It helps you to learn, especially to learn your spouse when it comes to conflict.
Because, yourself.
Right, because you didn't know that conflict made them feel the way they feel. Right. And with them bringing it to you, you're like, oh, now I know. That's why I say getting married always helps you grow, helps you to learn.
Yes, it's a crucible. Amen. I call it the crucible of marriage. Listen, that's exactly what it is. I believe. Matter of fact, there was one of my colleagues who said the other day, let me see, I wrote down what she said. She said, marriage is meant to destroy selfishness. Conflict will do that.
Yes.
Because there's no place in marriage for selfishness, but selflessness. And I love that.
That's true, because you got to remember, marriage represents God and the church. God says he came to serve, not
to be served.
Not to be served.
Right. So if that's the case, then you come to your marriage to serve, not for someone to serve you. And if we could get that right, because one thing I was going to say before this comment came up is that we got to examine ourselves. Our pastor was preaching about that. He's been talking about grace-based relationships. That's why you said grace earlier, Alvin. I got excited. She's been talking about grace-based relationships.
Yes.
It's been so good.
Yes.
Our pastors are our mentors. They're one of the very few couples in our space that we truly look up to, that we know live their marriage by the word of God. That's what we strive to do every day of our lives, and that's what we try to teach other couples. But she was saying, like what we've been talking about too, you cannot always just throw everything at your spouse and accuse them and do what she called put them in relationship jail. Because you did this, now you ain't gonna get this.
That's good. That's good.
I ain't gonna do this. You know, we gotta have grace in our relationship with our spouses, that they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. We're not perfect. Examine yourself and look at that log in your own eye before you look at someone else.
Yes. And can I say something to the ladies? I want to speak to the ladies. Do not weaponize sexual intimacy. Don't weaponize it. Don't use it as a
weapon. Say it again.
Don't weaponize sexual intimacy because he done pissed you off and now y'all are not going to engage in sexual intimacy. No. If my mama would say, if you're mad, just scratch your mad place and get glad and go on and do what you're going to do.
Well,
that's why I love my pastor. She talked about that from the pulpit too. She said, all you women walking around withholding sex from your man because you think that's going to make him better. They ain't going to make him better.
Yes. So Miss Ollie had a question about. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You had a question down there. You had a question
about family. I put it up there. She said, "What about?" It's a two-parter. What about family influence interfering and raising children? And then she said, especially in-law interfering in your marriage, and the husband taking his mother's side, but not his wife. I got a whole lot to say about that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That goes back to the whole communication thing and you and your wife being on the same page. First of all, your children are your children, and that's your household. We love our mamas and daddies, and they raised us, but they raised us their way. Now it's your turn to raise your kids your way. And honestly, a lot of times, you know, we got way more information and we got new ways of raising our children. I ain't raised my children the way I ain't raised my children the way my parents raised me. Like James said, kids are to be seen, not heard. So when James came into my life and I had my kids, he thought my kids were being disrespectful, but I taught my kids to have a voice. Share with me how you feel and what you're thinking. You can be honest with mama and tell her what you're thinking. Don't mean you can't be disrespectful about it. But it don't mean you're going to get your way, but I'm willing to hear you out. You know, we can have a discussion. Right. But the thing is, husband and wife got to realize that they got to be on the same page first.
Right.
They have to have set their own boundaries, their own guardrails, their own guidelines on how they're going to raise their children. And then when they're on the same page and somebody is saying or doing something against what the two of you have agreed on, that's when you can take action. And whoever parent it is are the ones who really has to be the one to sit down, talk with our parents. But let's just be honest. Most of us don't even know how to sit down and talk with our parents. So therein is the real issue. Is that we can't address our parents responsibly, maturely, and respectfully the way we would like to. And so that's why the issue doesn't get resolved.
And you can't let your parents say into your marriage, into your relationship, because the problem is if you go running to them about issues or problems, when you and your spouse resolve those problems, your parents don't see that. So they're always against the spouse because they didn't see that y'all made up, that y'all worked it out, that y'all talked it through. And they're always going to hold that against the spouse.
Right. If you don't fortify you have to fortify your house.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
Yeah. I said the Bible says you to leave your mother and father and cleave to your spouse. Again, you don't want to live by what the word says.
And we tell couples, your spouse comes first. Once you get married, that's your ministry. That's your priority. Your spouse.
And that's where you should be in agreement with.
Absolutely. Not your mama, not your daddy, not your grandma, not any of them. You still love and honor and respect your parents, but they have to take a back step. If
your parents are giving you good advice, if they're giving you good advice, don't discount it. But it's for the two of you to discuss and see if it's what you want to incorporate. Go ahead, Alan.
Because if you don't fortify your marriage, Satan has a way of we talk about fences, and he has a way of getting in and dropping seeds.
Absolutely.
And those seeds are negative seeds.
Yep.
Right.
And because if y'all don't stand close together and and understand all the outside noise has to stay outside.
Exactly.
Right.
And
that may include mom and them.
It may include them. And that's true. You love them to death. But their marriage, again, which y'all just stated, their marriage is their marriage. But it might not work in your household.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And and I think some of that responsibility has to be on the in-laws. Because I know my oldest son, I had to correct him because he and they were over here one day and I heard him say something to her about, well, that's my mama. My mama gonna always come first. I said, no, baby. We're not having that. We are not having that. She is first in your life.
First, that's
not me. Okay.
I had to tell my son the same thing.
That ain't my place. That is not my place in your life. Now, when you were 12 and you were 15 and you ain't have no woman and no children, that's a different story. But right about now, she is first in your life, not
exactly.
That's right. Yeah, my son made a comment about no woman is ever gonna come before my mama. I said, no, son, that's not true. When you get married, your wife comes before me.
Right.
He didn't understand it at the time because he was still fairly young adult. But he understands it now. He
understands it now, right?
But understand this. Yes. Because as parents, if we allow all that to happen, they're gonna listen, they're gonna go on and they're gonna find somebody else, and you're gonna be left holding the bag.
Left holding the bag. Right. That's right.
That's right.
Without and you might have a good husband or a good wife, and they be like, all right, bet. Then y'all have at it. But I gotta go.
Many a couple has allowed their children to destroy their relationships. Yes.
And like you said, Alvin, that allows Satan to come in and destroy that, because trust me, he's always after the man, because the man is the foundation. He wants to destroy that foundation.
Right.
That's
so
right.
he can get in there.
The Bible says he goes about like a roaring lion, seeking who he can devour.
That's right.
Yes. But if you maintain,
it doesn't matter what your relationship look like. You could be a pastor, because I've seen pastors in households. Their household is array because of the fact they allowed the foundation to be crumbled.
Exactly.
A seed to get in there.
Yes.
Because
And some
something
pastors put the church in front of their spouse, and they should.
That's
never
another
do that.
topic for another day.
Yes,
Yes, it is.
But they do. But you know what happens?
That's
Y'all
another
know what
topic for
happens.
another day. Yeah.
Yes, that absolutely does happen
Yes.
sometimes.
Mhm.
So I wanted to see if anybody else had any questions. If you have any questions, put it in the chat right quick, and we will. Oh, one thing Miss Ollie was asking, whoever is good at doing bills should do the budget.
That's right.
Well,
you know what? I saw Steve Harvey do a clip, and it's the exact same thing that James and I tell couples. Well, not this first part. I'm going to say this part that I'm saying is something that we say. We believe that whoever's better with finances, better with money, is the one who should handle the money. And but you have to come into agreement on that. And if you both want to work on it together, then work on it together. But you know, Steve, I watched a clip on Steve Harvey just this past week, and I was like, "Go ahead, Steve." Steve was saying every couple should have four parts, four money pots, four money pots.
Right.
One of them is the joint account for the bills. The second one is the joint account for savings and investing and all of that stuff. The third one is that he should have a little something, and she should have a little something. So we ain't got to be asking each other every single time, babe, can I spend $100 to buy that? I agree with that because, and I do believe that some couples can work with one account, you know, just one.
But what if you want to get a birthday gift and you don't want it to come out of the money?
And
like, what did you spend this for? You know, that's when you have your own personal.
And that works for some couples, and that's okay.
Right.
Some couples believe in one pot.
But it's about coming into agreement. It's about coming into agreement.
Coming into agreement.
That's all about communication, though. Because every household is going to be different.
That's
like
right.
My wife, we have our own accounts, and you know, we decided years ago, like, hey, she handles some bills, I handle some bills, and like, hey, and like if we're short, we come to each other.
Right.
But that comes with trust.
That comes with trust and communication and what works best for your household.
That's right.
That's the key word right there.
Because
your household.
Finance can be a big problem because a lot of relationship, one is a spender and one is a saver.
Absolutely.
So it's, you know, but you gotta decide who you want to be in charge of money. And like you said, Alvin, some people just keep it separate. You know, you pay these set of bills and I pay these set of bills. Only, you know, you just have to know that you trust your spouse, and you have to trust that your spouse is doing what they said they're gonna do. Because I've seen, you know,
whatever works best
come
for
back
your household.
around and find out that somebody won't pay in this bill, and so then you gotta play catch up.
Right.
Yeah. But I agree that every couple has to decide for themselves. And here's another thing that
there are strategies that work.
It may change over the course of time.
That's right.
Because there was a time when Frank and I, we did have just the one pot. But then some things happened, and that one pot wasn't going to work so much because there was some real challenges in the relationship, and the trust was gone. So if I don't trust you with my heart, I ain't gonna trust you with my money either.
Right. You know, and that's the key. As you grow, you evolve, and some things you have to change, and he has to evolve with you.
Right. Exactly.
I love that word because I tell my clients, my couples, like, there's going to be shifting in the seasons.
That's right. Always.
If you got married young, you thought young.
Right.
But as you grow, your philosophy is going to change. Your worldview is going to change.
That's
Things that you do is going to change. So we have to learn how to adapt to the change.
Exactly.
The same way we have to adapt to God, because God shifts. God doesn't do everything the same way.
And we grow in maturity in him. We're not the same believer we were when we first walked up to that altar or we first got saved. We grow in maturity as we learn the word. I always say, when you know better, you do better. So that's in every area of your life. You should do better. You should want to do better.
Absolutely. And be okay with the change and growth in your partner and in yourselves. Because if you are 55 years old, let's say you got married when you were 20, 22, and now here you are 50 years old. Neither of you was the same person that you were 30 years ago. You have grown.
You are, there's a problem.
And you know what? And that's
say
so
that
good.
again. Yes,
that's true. That's so
because
true.
you figure, like you said, 20s to 50s. Things you used to like then, you may not like now. That's why you always have to have that communication all throughout the marriage to let the party know, let your spouse know, well, I don't like that anymore. I used to, but now I don't, because they may think you still like it, and they may still try to do it, and you're mad now, but you didn't express to them. That's why I say expectations lead to disappointments. You got to tell them what you expect. You got to tell them what your expectations are. Because if you don't meet the expectations, you're going to be disappointed. But if you tell them, now they know. And the way things used to be are not how they are now.
Right. That's big. That's big.
Yeah. Because we should be growing, and with growth inevitably comes change.
Exactly.
So we have to be willing to accept that change, because it's like you said, Cynthia, if we haven't changed in 20, 30 years, that is a big problem.
That's a problem.
That's a big problem, because there's no way this Valerie that's sitting here now is the same Valerie that walked down that aisle back in 1980.
You got that right.
Let me tell you something. If Cynthia would have met me in my 20s, we wouldn't be married. I was a mess.
No way.
Hey, let's keep it real. Yes.
Because
we don't have it all together.
The way I was, Philadelphia, inner city, single parent household, and she's from I'm gonna say country. She's from North Carolina, 2-parent household. Oh my God, she wouldn't have wanted me back then.
Let's just take it a step further. If James had stayed the same person he was when we first got married, we probably wouldn't still be married. Okay. Or when we started dating, let's put it that way. We evolve over time. Just like we change our careers, or we grow our careers, we grow on our job. We want a promotion. We want education. We want to better ourselves. That's all we want in marriage. You should want to better your marriage. And what do you have to do to better your marriage? First, you got to educate yourself, and then you got to educate each together as one,
and that's
to decide what you want in life and what you want in marriage. That's why I love coaching. We're gonna start right here at point A, but we're gonna get all the way down to point Z if that's where you want to be.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
I love that. And on that note, I want to just ask, what advice would you give to couples who may be considering either counseling or coaching, but they're hesitant or skeptical about doing it, and what potential benefits they could get from it? What would you say to them?
You know what? Just walk into, just pick up the phone. I tried to get a couple to do this recently. Pick up the phone in their area. They want to see somebody in person, and just have a discovery conversation. And just see if it's for you. Because a lot of times what we perceive counseling and coaching is going to be, it's not what it's going to be. But also make sure you find somebody that you truly can connect with. Everybody is not for you. Don't mean they're a bad counselor or a good counselor, but everybody's not for everybody. So find that, just first of all, just pick up the phone and have a discovery call. We do free ones.
Right.
For the first
a free 30-minute consultation. There's nothing wrong with that.
No. Go to a counseling office, make an appointment, and go sit down and talk with them. If they're not the right fit, you move on to the next person. We don't want to coach people that not a good fit for us, and if we're not a good fit for you.
And we're not offended.
No.
Oh, absolutely. I do the same thing through Marriage Beyond the Breach. 30 minutes. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Interviewing me, I'm interviewing them. It's more from my perspective. They're interviewing me because I want them to really believe as much as they can within a 30-minute conversation that I'm a good fit for them. Because that's
and that I can help you.
And like you said, Valerie, there's nothing wrong with talking to somebody free for 30 minutes just to see.
That's right.
Look,
that's how you come. Maybe we're not for you. You can go free 30 minutes to 10 different counselors or coaches to see which one best fits you.
Right.
Yeah.
Who you feel more comfortable with.
The same way you go shopping and you look for items. Hey, there's certain stores that you might not go to.
Right.
Because it's not you. So it's the same way with counseling, coaching. It has to be a fit. Right. It has to be a fit. After our first session, I ask my couples, how did y'all feel?
Yep. We do the same
Were y'all
thing.
comfortable? Were y'all comfortable? And they tell me, yes, I was comfortable, or no. And I was, because you're not going to offend me. If y'all need to go find somebody else, I'm good with that. You know, I love Mending Hearts, and I'm like, we have many counselors there that are just as good as adequate, and and there's elsewhere that they might be able to go. But go get the help that you need.
And that's what I was going to say. As long as you get the help you need, if we're not the ones, I'm fine with that. But if you feel you need help, go find somebody that can help you, who you feel comfortable with, because you need help. And if you recognize that part, it's easy to find somebody that fits you.
That's right.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
As long as you recognize you need the help.
I want couples to realize it's not that difficult. If you need help, think of that person as somebody that can just kind of mentor you, that could just offer you some words of encouragement, somebody that you can kind of offload some things that you're feeling, some things that you're thinking, some things that you can't tell your spouse face to face because you just haven't grown to that maturity level. But for us coaches and counselors, we just want you to get the help that you need so that you can live the life that you truly want to live, and the life that God has meant for you to live, and the life that God is calling you to live. It's important, you guys, to have that healthy relationship, because your health is your wealth. So if your relationship is not good, it can affect your health. And we just want to see couples healthy, happy, and whole. And that's important to us. And if it's important to you, just get the help. Don't be afraid to seek counseling or coaching. Does anyone know individual Christian counseling? That's one thing I was going to mention too. Christian counseling is a little bit different from coaching and licensed counseling, because with Christian counseling, you're basically coming from a biblical perspective. You're telling them what thus saith the Lord, what thus says the word, but you do still give practical application. So it's not necessarily theory based.
Right.
And it's not necessarily goal-based. It is biblical-based. And so that person said, a Christian counselor, all four of us here on this call today are Christian counselors, because I can tell by the words that's coming out of everybody's mouth. So,
I just want to add something to that with those of us who are Christian counselors, and see, this is the benefit of having a Christian counselor, because we have theory and we have the Bible. And it depends on what the individual is looking for when they come to counseling. That's one of the questions that we ask. Are you looking for Christian counseling? Sometimes they'll say no, but then once we get into the process, I'll discover that they said no because they weren't sure what that looks like. And so then I will have to explain to them what Christian counseling looks like when you're with me. Now, hopefully it's the same thing as when Alvin does it or when another counselor does it, but it simply means that you get both. You have theory and you have the Bible, and there is an intersection of both of them. They're both included in the counseling process. Now, if you don't want Christian counseling and you want secular counseling with theory based without the Bible, we can do that. We can do that as well. And so I think that's one of the advantages of being a Christian counselor or a Christian coach, because you can get
you come to us. That's we don't do secular counseling. Everything we do is Bible based. Okay? We are Christian counselors to the core. So you come to us, you're going to get the word. Now we don't believe in throwing. James would tell the couples, we don't throw the word at you. Every word come out of our mouth is not a scripture. Right, because
there's some times where, especially the man, they say they want biblical based, but they don't want you to throw a bunch of scriptures at them.
But a lot of people really don't want to hear what thus says the Lord. They say they want Christian counsel, but they don't really want to do what the word says. But we're Christian counselors. We're counselors at church too. So we counsel for our church, and then we're coaches for our business. And we find that a lot of times when you tell people that this is okay, 1 Corinthians says da da da. Yeah, but if she make me mad, then I can't help it. I just go off. Yes, you can help it, because the word says you can.
So let's take that step further.
Christian counseling is probably the hardest counseling that you can get. Okay.
Yes.
Cynthia, let's take it a step further, though. Let's take it a step further. No, I agree with everything that you just stated. Christian counseling is not browbeating, and I always let them know that it's not browbeating. It's not, because when I first started preaching, I was fire and brimstone. That's I was like, the Bible said, but understanding the grace of God, understanding who Jesus was. So, now I'm able to look at it through the lens of Christ.
Right.
In presenting the scriptures to people because of the fact everybody can interpret the Bible.
Right.
Nope.
I know y'all can, but the people that's coming to you, they don't understand it.
They don't.
And so, when they talk about obey, women obey.
Oh my gosh.
Man.
People go into a tizzy over that.
You see the reaction, right? But when you break it down as to what does it mean to obey, it means to come under submission under somebody you trust.
That's right.
Right. Right.
Even in work, it's like, you follow your boss and what they tell you to do, but they're giving you a check. But when you trust that they're telling you the right thing to do, you don't mind doing it.
Right.
Because it's for the betterment of your job. The same thing. God gives us these principles. It's not just he's throwing these words out there. He's throwing them out there for a reason. He's like, because if we understand what he's trying to tell us, then now it's going to be easier for you to apply to it.
Exactly.
But we have to understand what it is that we have to do as a husband and as a wife.
That's right.
And that's why. Let me just say, I've been doing couples premarital therapy.
I love that.
We love premarital.
That's our favorite.
That's our favorite.
I love that because you're bringing in people now that you're introducing all the stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And you're going over the things like, hey, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. So you have to be, now you can be better prepared going into your marriage than being in the marriage and not understanding how we get here. How did we get here?
Yeah.
You're laying that foundation for the marriage, for the future.
Groundwork.
The
groundwork.
Absolutely.
We love it.
So that I call that my construction phase.
That's good.
We're going in construction because now y'all building.
I just want to also add that even when we are engaging in Christian counseling with Christian couples, at least from my perspective, I still have to meet them where they are because
that's true.
Yep.
Let me just say this. Saying we are Christian, that's a very broad statement. But what does that mean? What does it mean to the individual that's sitting in front of me that says that he or she is a Christian? Do they mean it the same way that I mean it? Does it mean that they are a believer? Does it mean that they have a relationship with Jesus Christ? Are they born again? Or are they a nice person who attends church?
True. Yes.
So I think there needs to be, at least from my perspective, some clarity in terms of where that person is when they say, I am a Christian, because then we've got to meet them at that place.
At that place. Because everyone's walk is different where they are in their path. Everyone is different where they are. So you got to meet them where they are on their walk, on their journey.
Right. Yeah. Are they a new believer? Are they a seasoned saint, so to speak? That's kind of an old timey saying. Yeah. But it really depends. And sometimes I ask, okay, what is your conversion story? If you are a born again Christian, what's your conversion story? What did that look like? How do you know let me rephrase that. What leads you to say that I'm a Christian? What does that mean for you? Because I need to know that so that I can meet them where they are. Because I don't want to give them or offer something, the Bible talks about meat versus milk. And if they're still at the meat or the pablum or the cereal stage, then that's where I've got to be with them, because that's
Right.
where they are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
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 true.
anywho, oh wow, this has been an amazing conversation.
Yes, it
Yes,
has.
Yes.
And those of you who are still there, I would appreciate, give a shout out to these wonderful, wonderful guests that we've had on tonight. We have been enlightened, we've been encouraged, we've heard hope, we've experienced so much on this evening, and I pray that it has really been a help to those of you who have listened. And my pastor always says, some food is for us to eat, other food is for us to serve. So
That's
even if
right.
you don't need it, maybe you know someone who does,
Ooh,
and you can
does.
share
Good.
this video with them. James and Cynthia, I love y'all. I love
we love you
having
too.
you guys on.
I had fun with y'all.
Yeah,
I had fun with y'all.
Yes.
I could do
Alvin,
these all day.
Yes, I love you, Alvin. So I'll
Yes.
see you on Wednesday when we have our clinical meeting.
Yep.
So I appreciate you guys so very much. It means a lot to me that you guys take the time to be here and to share this platform with me.
We just want to thank you for having us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yes.
It is such a pleasure. And I can't wait to come to the conference next year. I told y'all, no, it's this year, because we went last year, right? Wasn't it?
Yes.
So whenever we come, we're gonna be
It's
there
the
for both.
third weekend in September, then September 19th and 20th.
Yes, we'll be there for both days this time.
Couples Fest.
It's here in Maryland.
Okay.
It's in Maryland.
We love to have you guys, Alvin.
All right.
It's always a blast.
Yes.
Yes,
I'll share the
yes.
information with Alvin.
Yeah.
But the last time we went, the Cookie Man and I, we were only able to be there for one day, but we want to stay for both days next time.
And
were
then you can.
Were you there Friday or Saturday? I forget.
I was at the first night. Yeah, I was at the first. We were there Friday.
Oh, yeah. Saturday night was amazing. Did you see the pictures? Oh.
I did. I saw that.
And Alvin, then you could really hear Cynthia.
Oh no.
Oh my goodness, boy. Yeah.
Oh, Cynthia, someone that I met at your conference, 2 people I met at your conference, I've had them on the show.
Okay.
Yes, Dominique.
Okay.
And yes, and Dawn.
Oh, I saw Dominique was going to be on there. And who else?
And Dawn Horizons, who does
Dawn Horizons.
massage.
Okay, awesome.
Yes,
See?
I've had them both
I
on.
love collaboration. See, I'm not one of them people that think you're going to steal my clients, steal my customers, steal my friends. No, we are all in this together. It's about collaboration and partnership.
Yes.
Good for you,
Building the kingdom. No.
Building the kingdom. You got that right, Mr. Green.
All right, you guys, thank you so much.
Right.
And those of you who are here next week, come back. We're going to be talking about resilience. I think that's something that all of us, but especially some of these young folk, could really use a big dose of some resilience.
Yes.
Anyway,
I want to thank all our friends on family on Facebook for joining us. Thank you so much.
And it's nice meeting you, Alvin.
Hey, same here, James.
From the neighborhood. No, let me.
Okay, guys, have a great night. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.